Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing how tightly they are bound, not by chains made of iron, but by thoughts and beliefs that have quietly shaped their every choice. These invisible chains are more dangerous than any prison wall because they look like safety. They feel like comfort. You can live within them for years, even decades, without ever questioning their presence. Society, family, friends, they all hand you links in that chain, one by one, and you accept them out of love, out of fear, out of the desire to belong. Eventually, the chains become so familiar that you begin to call them me. When you were a child, the world was limitless. You could become anything, do anything. You played without fear, spoke your truth without hesitation, and believed in impossible things. But slowly the world started to tell you what is realistic. They told you what was possible for someone like you. They said, don't dream too big, you might be disappointed. Don't stand out, people will judge you. Don't speak your mind, you'll upset others. And so, inch by inch, you began to shrink to fit the world's comfort. You stopped exploring your potential, not because you lost it, but because you were trained to forget it. The invisible chains begin as simple suggestions, but over time they turn into internal laws. You start hearing voices inside your head that sound like your own, yet they are echoes of others. They whisper, you're not ready, you're not enough, you'll fail. These are not truths, they're just inherited fears. And the tragedy is, people spend their entire lives fighting battles that were never theirs to begin with. They are defending limitations that someone else handed them. It's easy to blame the world, but the truth is, no one can imprison you without your participation. The chains only tighten when you believe in them. The moment you begin to see them for what they are, stories, opinions, beliefs, you realize they hold no real power. You are free the instant you stop agreeing with the lie. But to do that, you must have the courage to look within, because the cage is not outside, it's built in your mind. Freedom doesn't mean rebellion against others, it means awakening to the truth of who you are. It's realizing that the limits placed upon you are not reflections of your capacity, but of others' fears. People act from what they know. If they have lived small, they can only advise you to live small. It's not malice, it's limitation. But if you want to live a boundless life, you cannot take advice from those who have never left the ground. Look at how people live. Most follow the same pattern. Study, work, settle, retire, believing that this is all there is. When someone dares to step outside that pattern, it makes others uncomfortable. They'll say you're being foolish, that you're wasting time, that you'll regret it. They say this because they have already traded their freedom for security, and they cannot bear to see someone else walk away from the deal. Your courage reminds them of their surrender, and that is why they resist it. But those who truly wish to live must be willing to walk alone. You cannot break free while still craving everyone's approval. You cannot find your truth while trying to fit into someone else's story. The moment you choose authenticity over acceptance, something shifts inside you. The fear of judgment begins to fade. You start to breathe easier. Life becomes lighter, not because the world has changed, but because you have stopped carrying its weight. When you start living consciously, you'll notice that many limitations are self-imposed. You were told what success means, what happiness means, what a good life looks like. You never asked, is that true for me? You simply followed the script. But life is not a script to be repeated. It is a journey to be discovered, and discovery requires you to question everything you've been told. True freedom begins when you stop reacting to others' opinions and start responding to your own awareness. The mind will resist. It will say, what if they're right? What if I fail? But even failure on your own path is more fulfilling than success on someone else's, because at least you are alive, not just existing within boundaries drawn by others. A bird does not learn to fly by studying the shape of its wings. It learns by leaping into the air. The same is true for you. You cannot break your invisible chains by analyzing them forever. At some point you must act even if you feel uncertain. That single step, however small, is the beginning of freedom. So ask yourself, what are the chains that still hold you? Whose voices are you obeying without question? And are they leading you toward your truth or keeping you safely caged? The answer is not in the world, it's in your awareness. Once you see the bars, they can no longer confine you. You are not meant to live a life shaped by others' fears. You are meant to rise, to explore, to experience the vastness of your own potential. Every moment you dare to live your truth, the chains begin to fall away. If this message speaks to something inside you, don't just listen. Reflect. Ask yourself what's holding you back. Share your thoughts below. Your awareness might be the spark that helps someone else see their own invisible chains. Within every human being there is a voice that speaks not through words, but through an unmistakable sense of knowing. It does not shout. It does not argue. It simply whispers quietly but firmly from the very core of your being. Yet most people never hear it clearly because the noise of the world has become too loud. The opinions of others, the expectations of society, the constant chatter of the mind, these drown out that inner voice, the one that truly knows what is right for you. You see, every person has been given an inner compass. It always points you toward what is true for your life. But when you are too busy trying to please others, to be accepted, to fit into the roles they assign you, that compass becomes buried under layers of confusion. You start to depend on external approval to decide who you are. You wait for someone else to tell you what's right, what's possible, what's wise. But the truth is, no one can tell you that, only you can. The tragedy is that in trying to become what others expect, you slowly lose the connection to your own truth. This voice inside you is not logical. It's intuitive. It doesn't always make sense to the thinking mind, but it never misleads you. You may call it instinct, awareness, or soul. It doesn't matter. When you listen to it, life moves in alignment. When you ignore it, even success feels empty. That's why so many people who seem to have it all still feel restless. They built their lives according to the world's standards, not according to their own truth. They achieved what others admire, but lost touch with what they themselves value. To hear your inner voice, you must first create silence. Not the kind of silence where there is no sound, but the silence where there is no interference. When the mind stops arguing, judging, analyzing, suddenly you begin to feel something deeper. You start to sense what truly matters to you. In that stillness, you realize that your life was never meant to be a repetition of anyone else's pattern. You are meant to walk your own path, however uncertain it may seem. When you start living from your inner voice, life becomes clear, even if it's not always easy. You will see what you need to do, even when others don't understand. The decisions may not always make sense to those around you, but you will feel an inner conviction that doesn't require validation. That clarity is power. It gives you the courage to walk alone if necessary, because you are no longer seeking direction from the outside. Many people fear listening to their inner voice because it often asks for change. It asks you to step out of comfort, to let go of what no longer serves you, to move beyond familiar territory. The ego doesn't like this. It wants security, control, predictability. But the inner voice doesn't care for comfort. It cares for truth. It knows that real fulfillment can only come when you live authentically, not when you simply survive within boundaries drawn by others. You must understand that your mind is like a crowded room. Every opinion, every fear, every piece of advice from others echoes inside it. In that noise, your inner voice can't be heard. So the first step is awareness, knowing which voice is yours and which belongs to the world. The voice that comes from truth feels peaceful even when it asks for courage. The voice that comes from fear feels restless even when it promises safety. Learn to tell the difference. When you begin to follow that inner direction, miracles happen in subtle ways. You start meeting the right people, finding the right opportunities, feeling a deep sense of alignment. It's not that the world changes overnight. It's that you begin to move in harmony with it. Life starts working asterisk with asterisk you, not against you. What once seemed difficult becomes effortless because you are no longer divided within yourself. But if you keep ignoring that voice, it doesn't disappear, it becomes quieter. Over time, you begin to feel lost, uncertain, disconnected. You may achieve much in the outer world, but inside there will be an emptiness that no success can fill. That emptiness is the result of living out of sync with your truth. The world will always have 1,000 opinions about who you should be. Some will praise you, others will condemn you, but both are traps if they make you forget your own inner knowing. Real strength is not in pleasing others, but in standing firm in your clarity, even when no one understands it. There will come moments when you doubt yourself, when the noise outside grows louder than your heart's whisper. In those moments, don't rush, don't seek answers from others, just be still. The voice within you is patient. It waits for your attention. Once you turn inward, even for a few moments, it will guide you again. You must learn to trust it, even when it leads you into the unknown, because the unknown is where life truly happens. Everything beautiful, love, creativity, growth, emerges from that space. When you follow your truth, the fear of failure disappears because even mistakes become meaningful. Every time you choose to act from your own clarity instead of following the crowd, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. You begin to live as a conscious being, not as a reflection of others' expectations. That is the essence of inner power, to be guided not by noise, but by knowing. If this message stirs something within you, take a moment to reflect. Are you living by your truth or by someone else's story? Share your thoughts below. Your reflection might awaken someone else's inner voice too. There comes a moment in every person's life when the path becomes narrow, when the noise fades, and when you must walk alone. It is in that solitude that true transformation begins. Most people fear being alone because they associate it with emptiness, but aloneness is not emptiness, it is space. Space where you can finally see yourself without the distortions created by others' opinions and expectations. When you are surrounded by people all the time, their energy, their beliefs, their judgments seep into you. You start living through borrowed perceptions, but when you are alone, even for a short while, you begin to meet yourself, and that meeting changes everything. The world celebrates connection but forgets the power of solitude. Being with others teaches you how to coexist, but being with yourself teaches you how to live. It teaches you clarity, strength, and peace. The courage to stand alone is not about rebellion. It's about recognition. Recognition that your inner truth cannot always be validated by the crowd. The majority moves by momentum, not awareness. They go where everyone else is going, believing that safety lies in numbers. But truth is rarely found in the crowd. Truth lives in silence, in observation, in awareness. To stand alone does not mean to reject people. It means not to be dependent on their approval for your direction. When you are grounded in your own awareness, you can walk among thousands yet remain untouched by their confusion. You can love deeply but without attachment. You can connect fully but without losing yourself. That is true freedom, to be with everyone yet belong to yourself. Many people never experience the richness of solitude because they try to fill every moment with noise. They are afraid of silence because silence confronts them with themselves. It shows them their fears, their insecurities, their emptiness. And instead of observing, they run. From one distraction to another, from one relationship to another, from one achievement to another. But no matter how fast you run, you can't escape yourself. The only way out is in. You must sit with your silence long enough to see what it's trying to show you. When you stop running, when you sit quietly and allow life to reveal itself, you begin to see that solitude is not loneliness. It is intimacy with existence. You realize that you were never truly alone because life itself is with you in every breath. But this awareness comes only when you stop seeking company to fill your emptiness and instead allow that emptiness to blossom into wholeness. Standing alone will test you. People will question your choices. They will misunderstand your silence. They will try to pull you back into the familiar rhythm of conformity, not because they want to harm you, but because your courage to be different exposes their fear of doing the same. When you choose your truth over their comfort, it unsettles them, but you must stay firm. The journey of truth is not walked in groups. It begins in solitude and flowers into strength. Do not confuse loneliness with being alone. Loneliness is a cry for company. Aloneness is a celebration of self. When you embrace aloneness, you stop expecting others to complete you. You realize that you were never incomplete. You don't enter relationships out of need but out of overflow. You don't seek approval but offer understanding. Such a person becomes magnetic, not because they are trying to impress anyone, but because peace is naturally attractive. There will be moments when this path feels heavy. You will doubt yourself, wonder if you've made a mistake, feel the sting of misunderstanding, but those moments are sacred. They are the forging of inner strength. Diamonds form under pressure, not comfort. In those times, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Every challenge faced in solitude shapes you into a being who no longer depends on the world to feel whole. When you stand alone long enough, you start to see the world differently. You no longer crave validation. You see through its illusion. You understand that people's opinions are just reflections of their state of awareness, not measures of your worth. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself, because truth needs no defense. You simply live, and your presence becomes your statement. Solitude sharpens clarity like nothing else. When you are not distracted by constant voices, your perception deepens. You begin to sense what is real and what is borrowed. You start making decisions not from fear or pressure, but from pure understanding. This clarity becomes your inner compass. It doesn't lead you to comfort, but it always leads you to truth. So when life pushes you into solitude, don't resist it. Don't fill it with noise or people just to escape yourself. Sit quietly, listen deeply, let the silence speak. You will find that standing alone was never about isolation. It was preparation. Preparation to move through the world with grace, power, and unshakable awareness. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you allowed yourself to be truly alone without distraction? Share your thoughts below. Your reflection might inspire someone else to find strength in their own silence. From the moment we are born, we are conditioned to seek approval. A child looks at a parent's face for reassurance. A student waits for a teacher's praise. An adult spends a lifetime trying to earn the world's applause. It becomes a habit so deeply ingrained that most people never realize how much of their life revolves around being validated by others. You dress a certain way, speak a certain way, behave a certain way, not because it's your truth, but because it makes others comfortable. You begin to confuse being liked with being right, and slowly your authenticity is traded for acceptance. When your sense of self depends on how others see you, you become a prisoner of perception. You can no longer move freely because every decision must first pass through the filter of what will they think. Even your dreams start shrinking to fit inside the box of social approval. You begin to censor yourself, not because anyone forced you to, but because you fear rejection. You smile when you don't feel like smiling. You agree when you want to disagree, and you follow paths that lead you away from your truth. All this just to maintain the illusion of belonging. The need for validation is subtle but powerful. It can disguise itself as humility, as politeness, even as love. You might tell yourself you're doing it to keep peace, to make others happy. But deep down, you know it's fear. The fear of being misunderstood, the fear of standing alone, the fear of losing acceptance. And fear can never lead to truth. Fear only builds walls that separate you from your own potential. When you live for approval, you hand over your power to others. You allow strangers to decide your worth, your choices, your direction. One compliment lifts you up, one criticism tears you down. Your peace becomes dependent on forces beyond your control. That is not living, that is surviving through performance. True confidence arises only when you no longer need the world to validate your existence. Every great change begins when you stop asking for permission to be yourself. When you realize that no one else can measure your worth, you stop playing small. It's not arrogance, it's awakening. You finally understand that approval is fleeting, but authenticity is eternal. People's opinions shift like the wind. One day they praise you, the next they condemn you. If your happiness depends on their words, you will forever be at their mercy. But if your happiness flows from within, no one can take it away. Validation seeking often comes from a deep sense of insecurity, a feeling of I am not enough. That feeling drives people to chase recognition, to prove themselves constantly. But no amount of praise can fill that emptiness, because it's not an outer problem. It's an inner disconnection. When you know who you are, you no longer need to prove it to anyone. You don't seek recognition. Your actions become expressions of inner completeness. Look around. So many people are exhausted, not from hard work, but from pretending. Pretending to be happy, pretending to be confident, pretending to have it all together. They wear masks so often that they forget what their real face looks like. And yet, deep inside, there is a longing to drop the act, to simply be. That longing is the soul's cry for freedom. But freedom demands courage. The courage to be disliked, the courage to stand apart, the courage to say, "This is who I am." When you begin to live authentically, not everyone will celebrate it. Some will feel threatened because your freedom reminds them of their own confinement. Others will call you selfish or strange because you no longer conform to their expectations. But those reactions are not about you. They are reflections of their own discomfort. You are not responsible for how others perceive your truth. Your only responsibility is to live it fully. As you release the need for validation, something magical happens. You begin to experience peace. You no longer wake up anxious about what others will think. You no longer shape your words to please. You speak, act, and move from clarity, not from fear. This doesn't make you defiant, it makes you real. And when you are real, you attract real connections. People who resonate with your authenticity, not your performance. You must understand, approval is not love. Approval is a transaction. You behave in a way that pleases others, and in return, they give you temporary acceptance. But love, true love, exists only where authenticity lies. When you drop the mask, you give others permission to do the same. That's how truth spreads, not through preaching, but through living it. So stop trying to be impressive, be genuine. Stop chasing applause, pursue alignment. Stop shaping yourself to fit into small spaces. Expand into the vastness of who you truly are. The world may not always understand you, but it will always respect the one who lives with clarity and conviction. Ask yourself how much of what you do today is truly yours and how much is borrowed from others' expectations. Reflect deeply on this. Share your thoughts below. Your insight might give someone else the courage to stop performing and start living authentically. Every human being who dares to rise, who dares to create something meaningful, will face criticism. It's inevitable. The moment you step out of the ordinary, the world will notice, and not everyone will clap. Some will question you, some will doubt you, and some will try to pull you down. But you must understand, criticism is not your enemy. It is simply a reflection of how uncomfortable your growth makes others feel. Those who cannot expand with you will try to shrink you to their size. If you allow that, you will never know your true strength. When someone criticizes you, observe carefully. It reveals more about them than about you. Criticism is often a confession of insecurity. People project what they fear within themselves. If they see you doing what they couldn't, they call it arrogance. If they see you succeeding where they failed, they call it luck. If they see you breaking the boundaries they still live in, they call it rebellion. But none of this has anything to do with you. The problem begins only when you start believing them. Most people waste precious energy defending themselves against opinions that have no real substance. They try to explain, justify, or prove their worth. But the more you argue with those who misunderstand you, the deeper you sink into their confusion. Silence is far more powerful than explanation. The need to explain yourself arises only when you doubt your own truth. If you are clear within, you don't have to shout. Your life becomes your proof. Criticism can be a gift if you use it wisely. Instead of reacting emotionally, learn to listen with awareness. Some criticism is noise, born of envy or misunderstanding. Ignore it. But sometimes, beneath even harsh words, there may be a seed of truth. If you can receive that truth without ego, it becomes fuel for your growth. Life has a strange way of using everything, even your critics, to refine you. The fire that burns also purifies. In this journey, you must understand that not everyone will see what you see. You are walking a path that only your eyes can recognize. Expecting others to understand it is like asking someone to read a book they've never opened. You cannot wait for the world's permission to follow your vision. The same people who criticize you today may one day admire you after you succeed. But if you stop because of them, you will never know what you were capable of becoming. Every person who ever achieved something worthwhile faced resistance. The higher you climb, the stronger the wind blows. But the wind is not there to stop you. It's there to strengthen your wings. Without resistance, you wouldn't develop the balance, the focus, or the resilience to sustain your success. The real test is not whether you fall, but whether you rise again, wiser and calmer each time. When people speak against you, don't take it personally. They are speaking from their own limitations. If you understand this deeply, their words will no longer wound you. You will see them as part of the landscape, like the wind or the rain. Let them pass. Your energy must stay focused on creation, not reaction. The moment you start reacting to negativity, you lose direction. But if you transform that energy into determination, every insult becomes inspiration. Every obstacle becomes opportunity. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Let your work speak. Let your consistency silence doubt. The greatest response to criticism is progress. When they said you couldn't, and you did. It speaks louder than any argument. Life rewards those who keep moving while others talk. There is a beautiful strength in remaining steady amidst noise. It's like the ocean. Waves crash at the surface, but deep below it remains calm. Be like that. Let the surface of life be noisy if it must, but keep your depth unshaken. Once you learn to stay centered, no amount of judgment can disturb your peace. You will see criticism for what it truly is, an echo that fades with time. If you look closely, every great person you admire was once doubted, ridiculed, or opposed, but they didn't stop. They turned pain into purpose. They understood that people criticize what they do not understand. The same voices that mocked them eventually said, "We always knew you'd make it." That's the nature of the world. It catches up only after you've proven what was possible all along. So when criticism comes, smile. It means you're doing something worth noticing. It means you've stepped out of the shadows of mediocrity. Don't curse it, use it. Let it polish your strength and sharpen your focus. A seed must push through dirt to become a tree. The resistance is not a curse, it's the process. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. Have you been holding back because of others' opinions? Share your thoughts below. Your insight might help someone else transform criticism into the strength to rise above it. Fear is a shadow that follows every human being. It takes many forms: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of being judged. But beneath all of them lies one truth. Fear is nothing more than imagination without awareness. It's a story the mind creates about what might go wrong, and when you believe that story, it begins to control your life. Most people live within the walls built by their own fears, mistaking them for safety. They never realize that what they call security is just another kind of prison. You see, fear doesn't stop you from dying. It stops you from living. It makes you play small when life is calling you to expand. It whispers, "Stay where it's comfortable," and you obey, believing comfort means peace. But comfort and peace are not the same. Comfort is avoidance. Peace is awareness. Comfort keeps you stagnant. Peace allows you to grow. When you live only to avoid fear, you also avoid possibility. The strange thing about fear is that it has power only in the dark. The moment you turn your awareness toward it, it begins to dissolve. Think of it like this: a shadow can't survive in light. The more you run from fear, the bigger it grows. But when you stop running and face it directly, you realize it was never as big as it seemed. Most of the things people fear never actually happen. They suffer more in imagination than in reality. Fear thrives on resistance. The more you say, "I don't want to be afraid," the stronger it becomes. But when you allow yourself to feel it fully without judgment, something shifts. You start to see fear not as an enemy, but as a messenger. It's showing you where your growth lies. Wherever there is fear, there is a boundary waiting to be broken. If you meet it with awareness instead of avoidance, that very fear becomes your teacher. Life's design is such that growth and comfort cannot coexist. If you wish to expand, you must walk into the unknown, and the unknown will always bring fear. That's natural. But courage doesn't mean the absence of fear, it means moving despite it. The difference between those who live fully and those who merely exist is not that one feels no fear, it's that one refuses to be ruled by it. Look at how much of your life is dictated by fear. You choose careers out of fear of failure, relationships out of fear of loneliness, beliefs out of fear of being wrong. Even morality, for many, is not born of awareness but of fear, fear of punishment or judgment. This is why life becomes heavy, mechanical, repetitive. You are not living. You are surviving under the weight of imagined consequences. But once you see fear as your own creation, you stop being its victim. When you face fear with awareness, something extraordinary happens. You begin to experience freedom. Not the kind of freedom that comes from escaping fear, but the freedom that comes from understanding it. You realize fear is just energy, neutral and powerful, waiting to be transformed. The same energy that once made you tremble can fuel your passion, your focus, your determination. When you learn to channel it, fear becomes a source of aliveness, not paralysis. Many people ask, how do I overcome fear? But you don't overcome fear, you outgrow it. The moment your understanding becomes larger than your fear, it loses its grip. For example, a child may fear the dark because they can't see what's there. But once they understand there's nothing hidden, the fear vanishes instantly. Likewise, every fear in life dissolves when seen through the light of awareness. Every time you choose to act in spite of fear, you strengthen your inner foundation. You realize that uncertainty is not something to escape. It is where all life happens. The greatest experiences, the deepest love, the boldest creativity. They all require stepping into the unknown. Fear will be there, but you don't have to fight it. You simply walk with it, knowing it cannot touch your essence. Fear loses its power when you stop identifying with it. The mind may tremble, the body may react, but deep within, you can remain still. You are not your thoughts or emotions, you are the awareness that perceives them. The more rooted you are in that awareness, the less control fear has over you. It comes, it goes, but you remain untouched. So don't let fear decide the direction of your life. Let awareness decide. Let clarity, not comfort, guide your steps. Every great transformation begins with a moment of fear. The question is not whether you feel it. The question is whether you move through it. If this message stirs something within you, take a moment to reflect. What fear has been holding you back, and what would your life look like if you stopped obeying it? Share your thoughts below. Your reflection might awaken someone else to walk through their fear and into their freedom.